that's the medical term, Jamesitis, but the vernacular term is just the crabs.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, and joining me all the way from San Francisco is your favorite and the smartest guy we got. It's Nick Walsh, rocking a killer mustache. Walshy, what is up?
What's up, Schreck? Dude, you didn't even say your own name. You just said you're the host. You went rogue.
I was so focused on your stash there that I think it's just drawn me right off script, man. I am Nick Schreck.
He is Nick Schreck. Schreck, how are you doing, man?
I'm great, man. I got a beard for the first time in probably over 2 or 3 years. You're rocking a killer mustache. I'm feeling good about how fantasy football has treated me this year. Bless up to the schedule. And that's it, man. I'm happy to acknowledge how I've gotten where I've gotten. But life's good, man. I got no complaints. No complaints.
Yeah. I mean, the beard looks great. You're in first in our league of record, as who is it, Vinny or Rodgers? One of them puts it that way. But you're in first in that league. The schedule has been a part of it, but also you deserve it. Your team's real good. I may have about 150 more total points on the year than you do. Maybe not. It's not like I checked that like right before we started or anything.
Who's counting, right?
Yeah, I mean, who really is counting? It's not like I have 140 more total points than anyone else in the whole goddamn league, and I'm somehow only one game over 500. No, that was my own fault this past week. Holy shit, dude. I made all the wrong decisions and lost to Don by less than a point, but what can you do?
I'll tell you what, Walsh, I will say it does seem like a lot of these games, there's been a couple of big blowout losses, right? But, for the most part, and I'm not complaining by any means, but my 2 losses came on field goals and within 1 or 2 points of each other, on Sunday night, Monday night games. Your loss there last week comes close. We've had a lot of these very tight butthole moments where the league has kind of shown us a parity that you don't necessarily see all the time, right? I feel like we've had a year or two where we have been like this, but the middle of the league is really just it's a big, it's all gunked up because really everybody's kind of still in play for the most part.
Yeah, I want to say 8 teams are either 6-5 or 5-6. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the case, which is just super wild. It makes the league an absolute ton of fun. It's what you look for. It's what you live for when it comes to fantasy.
You ain't kidding, man. And we'll give a shout out to Quarter here who ran some numbers and was a bit of a data nerd for us. Technically, even Joe, who's sitting in last place. Actually, Matt in 9th place has a worse chance of making the playoffs, believe it or not.
Because of his total points. That's interesting.
Yeah. So to finish in 4th place, Joe has a 3% chance, Matt has a 2% chance, but they are still technically in the race, and that just goes to show how gummed up that middle of the league is. And this week and really next week are going to be – the rest of the way is important, right? But, we can start to separate ourselves a little bit here. From the rest of the pack with a win here this week and next week.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm starting fucking what's his name? The running back for the Lions who was on a practice squad until last week. Bo Scarborough, is that the guy's name? I'm blanking.
It's good enough for me, Walsh, because his name should not even be relative it's I'm pulling up because we're playing each other. It is Scarborough. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm starting that motherfucker. So there you go. That's you can be a good team with a lot of points, and sometimes you still have to start Bo Scarborough. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess.
Hey man, next time all I can say is do a better job of making the schedule. I was very happy with the work you did this year, but I can understand depending on where everybody else sits. Rodgers, I think, is also grateful considering how many points he's put up. But let's get into it, Walshy, because the people, while they love the league of record, I'm sure they'd rather hear some actual fantasy football analysis from us here. Bye weeks coming in: Arizona Cardinals, Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of relevant guys across those teams. So again, could be in some spots here where you plug and play a little bit with these guys out. But we'll touch on them as we go through. And let's start off with what may be the game of the week, the Miami Dolphins at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland at minus 10.5, over under 44 and a half points. Yikes. Well, Miami's been better than they were to kick things off, Walshy, but do you have higher hopes for them to do it again here against Cleveland Browns?
So I think this game could be like a sneaky shootout. I don't know if that's like a weird take. I guess it kind of is based on, the Vegas lines and that kind of thing. But like Cleveland's defense, I know it's gotten better, particularly since Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams have gotten healthy. They're two outside corners. But like Miami's not dead in the water on offense. And I think they might make some adjustments this week. That's a little teaser for something coming up. I think they might make some adjustments that could maybe make their offense a little bit more dynamic. Cleveland is just in a great, great spot. So I think if Miami can avoid the game script where sort of Nick Chubb just grinds the ball down the whole game, this game has a chance to really blow that over-under out of the water and maybe get a little bit of a Fitzpatrick Baker Mayfield fucking showdown, dude. That's what I'm looking for.
Wow. Good for you, Walsh. I mean, that's all I got for you, man. If you're looking for a showdown between here and Fitzpatrick and Baker, but I mean, really, there's not a ton here that gets me excited about the Miami Dolphins, but I can see that you've got minus Devontae Parker, who's kind of made some things happen, but a shootout may be a little rich for my blood. So where do you go on the over under here then? Do you think?
Yeah, I'm going over on that for sure. I think, I really think they have the chance to sling the ball around a lot. But if we're talking in terms of like season long leagues, like this might be a game where I try and like stack it pretty sneaky on DFS sites in order to get, low owned shares of a game that I think can really shoot out.
Sure.
But I mean, despite the fact that I think that can happen, and I think that's well within the range of possibilities and more likely than I think Vegas thinks it is, the chalk outcome still here is that Cleveland wins this game pretty convincingly. So if that's the case on the Miami side, well, I do think you can stream Fitz in a pinch. Sure. I think there are a lot better options out there. And like you said, Devontae Parker's really the guy. He has 20 targets over the past 2 weeks. And he just turned in a great week against Buffalo's pass defense, which has been very, very good. Wow. So even though he's, going up against these Cleveland outside corners who are pretty solid, I'm in on Devontae Parker. The guy that I was referring to in terms of changing their plans was I think Patrick Laird has a chance to be someone who gets a little bit more involved this week because Kalen Ballage has been I think he is on pace to be depending on how he does the rest of the year, but if the season ended today, he would be the only running back in the history of the NFL to get more than 60 carries in a year and average under 2 yards per carry. So he's been really bad. And Patrick Laird this past week had 6 targets, 6 catches, 51 yards. I think for a team where their game script is likely going to be pass heavy, he might be an interesting ad in PPR as like sort of a speculative ad going down the stretch. And he might be a guy who could get you a little bit of production.
Interesting. I mean, the stat there over 60 carries and under 2. I mean, we've watched the likes of Bad Trent Richardson, Fat Eddie Lacy. I mean, to be that statistically bad is jarring.
It really is. It's like unbelievable how much that guy sucks.
I was literally, I don't know if I was going Facebook, Instagram, whatever the other day, and it was someone put up a meme like true Packer fans know who this guy is, and it was just Cheeseburger Eddie just fucking like filling up the entire frame. And I was just like, this just bad memories there from a fantasy football side of things. But even he was able to perform a little bit better than that. But I'm with you, Walsh, with Devontae Parker. I mean, he's finished as a top 32 wide receiver in 7 straight games. Obviously a tough matchup here. I think he's a wide receiver 3, just based on that volume they've seen. I think where you really like Devontae Parker, right, is the schedule moving forward. And obviously we're here talking about week 12, but I look at he gets the Eagles, the Jets, the Giants, and the Bengals in the next 4 weeks. It's pretty fucking tasty for a guy who's kind of been making it happen from what we thought was essentially a fantasy wasteland.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy who, looking at that schedule, you can realistically start him the entire rest of the season, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I agree that's a tit schedule. So for those of you that are looking for somebody maybe for future weeks, or your trade deadline is still in play and you're looking to make moves for the playoffs, not a bad guy to start looking at and evaluating. Definitely some opportunity, I think, long term. Again, but a wide receiver 3 more or less here for week 12. There's nobody else I have interest in on the Dolphins side of the ball. Even at tight end, he's had 6 targets in 3 consecutive games here. It's not for me.
Yeah, Gesicki really hasn't done much with the work that he's gotten this year. Like, yes, it's possible that he gets in the end zone. It's possible that he does a little bit more, but you're right. It's really only Devontae Parker at this point. The rest of the wide receivers are all sort of like rotating in and out between Hearns, Grant, and Wilson.
Yep.
And then, I brought up Laird as sort of like a speculative guy.
Sure.
Not someone that you want to start this week, I don't think, by any means. But if he turns in like an encouraging usage week, then yeah, I'm willing to roll him out there going forward.
Cool. Let's talk about the other side of the ball, the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield has kind of turned things around from the fantasy, total fantasy shithole that he had kind of was bringing us out of Cleveland. They're playing the Miami Dolphins. I think you can have worse plays here if you need to plug and play a QB.
Yeah, I mean, he just turned in a good game against the Steelers defense, which has been absolutely spectacular since acquiring Minkah Fitzpatrick. So, of course, he's going to have a terrible week this week, because why wouldn't he?
Because it's a great matchup.
Yeah, but I memean, theoretically, I feel like this is a start everyone game for the Browns. And by everyone, I mean Baker, number one quarterback off the waiver wire, 100%. Yep. And then both running backs, Chubb and Hunt, as well as Odell and
Jarvis.
Kareem Hunt, I know, it could be a little bit scary there, but 24% target share since he was activated. That's pretty good.
That's tits.
And in those same weeks, Odell and Jarvis Landry are at 31% and 24% respectively for target share. So yeah, those 3 guys are really the entire pass game right now. And all of them can be started confidently.
100%. Tight end David Njoku is slated to return from injured reserve. Obviously, we don't know what his role is going to be moving forward. We're not interested at this point, but just important to note that he is working his way back to this team. So
yeah, it's a shame. You would wish he was really back for this week because it's a great matchup, but not really viable yet.
Gotta spin that wheel someplace else. Unfortunately. Walshy, let's pick this game. Taking the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, me too, but I'm taking the Dolphins in terms of like the spread. I think they're going to keep it closer. I think they might shoot out a little bit.
Okay, my bad. So how do you want to pick it? Do you want to pick it on the spread, or do you want to just pick it to win? Because I know we
can do to win. But I think Cleveland's going to win, but Miami is closer on the spread.
Fair enough. Denver Broncos at the Buffalo Bills. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my my page here on them. I don't even know what I did with it. Yikes! Not great. Kick us off. What do you got, Walsh? I'm trying to find myself.
Yeah, sure. So the over-under here, Buffalo is a 4-point favorite with an over-under of 37.5. So we're looking at a game where we don't really expect a ton of scoring. Both of these are pretty good passing defenses. Both have a little bit questionable of run defenses. So I'm interested to see how the game sort of plays out. I think both defenses are in play in this situation. Denver's going to be rolling out Brandon Allen again. So take that as you will. In terms of the pass catching targets with that, in those 2 weeks with Brandon Allen, Cortland Sutton has gotten 17 targets. Noah Fant has gotten 14 targets. Those are the 2 guys that you're really going to want to look at in terms of starting.
How happy does the Noah Fant success feel? How good does it feel? How happy does that make you?
It's really funny, and it's funny. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast. Maybe I did, but a couple weeks ago, before he had that game where he had the 75-yard touchdown catch, I had a dream that like Noah Fant became like a bona fide tight end 1 in fantasy, and like I don't even like Noah Fant. I don't think he's like that good. I don't like rookie tight ends in general. but it's happening. So it's pretty cool that I called that in my sleep, which
I can tell how tuned up you were during that podcast because you don't remember telling that story to the people.
Oh my God, are you serious? That was one of the podcasts where I drank vodka. Holy fuck.
But it's
so bad.
But it's a good one because that's why I said I was like, Walsh, he had a dream, and unlike the Cecil Shorts dream of past for Don, this one has come true.
Yeah, this one's real. Noah Fant a week in, week out, I think, starting tight end. And we just talked about how the Bills are a tough matchup here for wide receivers. But Cortland Sutton, I was not about him preseason, and I was dead wrong. Blake, if you are listening, you were correct. I am going to owe you $100 on a bet between total fantasy points of Cortland Sutton and Sammy Watkins, because Sammy Watkins fucking sucks. And Cortland Sutton is a fucking baller.
And what a time to be alive, man. After week 1, you would have been like, fuck you, Blake. I fucking crushed it. Because Sammy
I was. There's no would have.
I'm sorry, you were. I apologize. And here we are. My how the tables have turned. Yikes. But just, Walsh, I do want to ask you about Tim Patrick for the Broncos, right? He caught 4 of 8 targets for 77 yards. No touchdowns, obviously. Not in this matchup here. You're playing the Bills, right? So we're worried about Cortland Sutton as it is. But do you foresee any fantasy relevance here possibly for Patrick moving forward? Or was this just kind of a right time opportunity? Things kind of came into play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too up on their schedule going forward, and we can look that up. But I mean, the concern for me, because I do think Tim Patrick is pretty solid, and he's shown he can be, like, during his time, on the field. But my concern is we like playing Sutton and Fant. Can Brandon Allen really support 3 fantasy relevant, targets here in this offense? And I wouldn't say that it's likely unless they're in, like, really, really a great matchup.
Okay. Yeah, you're right with Sutton and Fant. It's tough to foresee them keeping three fantasy relevant guys. So I am with you. We didn't hit the running backs. Philip Lindsay, dealing with foot and wrist injuries, was limited in practice on Wednesday. We expect him to kind of go. The foot injury is kind of new, but he seems to kind of play through what he's got going on. Health-wise, he set a new season high for snaps last week with 51, Walshy. I think he sits around a low running back 2 here.
Yeah, I agree with that. They said they want to really make him sort of the 1A as opposed to the 50-50 split that it's been for a lot of the year. And they seem to really do that, particularly in the first half of that game against Minnesota.
Yep.
They got away from that a little bit in the second half, I think probably due to the injuries that you're talking about. But it seems like they want to make Lindsay the primary guy with Freeman sort of as the change of pace. So I think until further notice, Philip Lindsay's sitting at that running back 2 level, like you said, and Royce Freeman, I think, is outside of consideration.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can't even put him in your flex. They clearly want to make Lindsay that guy. And he was almost invisible in the second half last week. So you can't have any confidence putting him in your lineup here as a starter because he may stay invisible for the Broncos. On the flip side of the ball, Walshy, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. We just talked about Josh Allen actually pre-podcast off air. About how his schedule does not do fantasy owners any favors moving forward. But still a John Brown fan. Still good things to come for him.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule for the Bills going forward is really, really terrible. But John Brown has just had such a high floor all year. And he finally hit that ceiling this past week, really, for the first time since week 1.
Yep.
So if you missed John Brown week, I am sorry, but that was John Brown week. It was there. It's gone now. You should still be playing him, but expect him to go back to that sort of 11 to 15 PPR point range as opposed to the 30 some odd points he put up this past week.
There's nothing wrong with that. Totally reasonable. I mean, again, he gets Chris Harris, who for the most part had done a pretty good job, minus last week against Stephon Diggs, where he just, whatever it was, what it was. But you can roll John Brown out there. I think when it comes to Cole Beasley's got a better matchup, but he hasn't passed 50 receiving yards in 7 out of 10 games. I don't think that changes here. I think he stays out of your lineups.
Yeah, Brown's the guy in this situation. I don't think there's really any reason to go further in terms of Bills pass catchers, and that includes Dawson Knox at tight end, who is not really getting the full snap share. Even though he caught a touchdown this past week, I don't think he's a guy you should be throwing in the roulette pool.
Nope, I completely agree. I want to say that Devin Singletary is the guy, but he fumbles again in the third quarter. I don't know. I don't know if the Bills are almost like that punishment. Like we watched, Bill Belichick, like you fumble and you're like, fuck, I don't know if you're going to see the field again. I'm slightly concerned just to see if they hold back on Singletary a little bit and give Frank Gore a little bit more work on the ground, just kind of as hey, rookie carrying the football, you're not taking care of the ball like you should.
Yeah, I'm still rolling out Singletary in situations where I need to. I think he's in consideration in terms of, a borderline RB2 flex type play. Like there are definitely teams where you do not have to play him.
Yes.
I'm also not really afraid of it. I don't think I'm afraid of Frank Gore in this situation. I also think, Singletary only had one target last week because they really just went up on Miami. I expect that to sort of come back to normal, because he's really a guy who, when he's been healthy, has been seeing somewhere in the 4 to 6 target range. So I think that's more of his expected outcome than one target that he saw this past week.
Get back to the norm a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's pick it. Who you taking, Walshy?
I'm going to go with Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm going to sweep it through. I'll take Buffalo as well. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Pittsburgh minus 6.5, over under of 39. We obviously watched Pittsburgh lose to the Browns. We had the whole big helmet fiasco and now allegedly racial slurs being used and everything else that supposedly caused the helmet fiasco to kind of go on. But division matchup. And division matchups, I feel like you always, and case in point, again, last week, you never really know what you're going to get right away, right? Because you can think you know it until I don't know. I feel like I overlook that sometimes where I look at division matchups and kind of forget about it. But Mason Rudolph goes for 251 yards and a pair of touchdowns against the Dolphins in Week 8. Minus that is at under 250 passing yards in every game. So not a Mason Rudolph fantasy fan. I don't think anybody's been on him at all so far.
No, I think he sucks, and I think he's a shitty dude.
Anything else you want to share about Mason Rudolph?
No, I think that sums it up.
That's pretty much all you need to know for Mason Rudolph. I'm just looking to see a health update here on Juju.
Did not practice today.
Okay, so at this point, I would assume he's not going to play. Maybe a return in Week 13, but Juju's not going to go. Still not practicing.
In terms of the health updates, just because I have the information up, Juju did not practice today, which would seem to trend towards him not playing.
Yep.
Deontay Johnson, it seems like, is likely to play this weekend. Okay. So you would think that Deontay Johnson and James Washington will be the starters in that situation, with maybe a little bit of Johnny Holton running deep routes, former Raider. Not that Mason Rudolph is going to hit him on anything. But and then in terms of the running backs, it looks like James Conner did not practice. Again, he is trending towards not playing.
Yep.
So you would think there Jalen Samuels will be the starter with Benny Snell mixing in. But Benny Snell is bad, and Jalen Samuels is the correct person to play.
100%. What does that leave us with, Walsh? I feel like he probably just hit everything fantasy relevant there.
Yeah, I mean, I said the two receivers are going to start. I wouldn't play either of them, just for the record, even against Cincinnati. The one pass catcher I think you can play is Vance McDonald, who is having sort of a late season surge. 7 targets in each of the past 2 games. He, I would think, projects to be the primary passing target here in this game, for Rudolph. And, I'm in on him.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Played at least 75% of the offensive snaps in every contest since the Week 7 bye. And the Bengals are bad. They're bad.
They are.
Somebody's got to catch the ball. And I think the tight end matchup is where the points come from. This is the Vance McDonald that I had hoped for when I drafted him in many leagues to start off the season. But that's all right. A late season surge is good for anybody who's in need of a tight end. Bengals side of the ball, Walshy. No more Andy Dalton. Still just feels weird to do a preview of the Bengals without Andy.
Yeah, and it's really shitty because I have so much Tyler Boyd, and man, that has not worked out well for me the past couple of weeks. It's bizarre. So the past 2 weeks with Ryan Finley have been the best 2 fantasy weeks of Joe Mixon's season because they seem intent on feeding him, and also he's just been more efficient. 30 carries 2 weeks ago against Baltimore, where they clearly just gave up and were like, we're going to hand the ball off to Joe Mixon and get on the team bus as soon as we possibly can.
Yep.
And then this past week, 15 carries for him, but he had a good game, turned it into 86 yards and a touchdown. He's still mildly involved in the pass game, and obviously Gio Bernard is still involved in the offense as well. So, do you buy into it against Pittsburgh? Because I get the feeling that this might be the week that his streak of good games sort of comes to a halt.
I feel like, do I buy it? No. Do I feel like you probably have, I feel like here's the situation, right? If you're a Joe Mixon owner, if you've been playing him, and most people have just continued to roll him out there, and then the last 2 weeks you've gotten performances that you were actually like, holy shit, maybe there is actually hope for him. I feel like you're going to still put him in your lineup here and hope for him to give you something again. So I think if you're a Joe Mixon owner, I think most Joe Mixon owners are playing him. I don't think that it's realistic for him to repeat what he has done the past 2 weeks. But I think most people, the average fantasy person, whether they're listening to any podcast or just setting their lineups, I think are playing Joe Mixon because they believe he has been reborn.
Okay, so in this game, who is the number one running back to play? Is it Joe Mixon or Jalen Samuels?
Jalen Samuels.
Okay, I agree with that. I don't think it's close.
Nope.
I'm trying to think of some other guys who. So Phillip Lindsay or Joe Mixon this week. That's probably a little bit tougher.
I'm still probably going to play Phillip Lindsay.
Yeah, I think I am too.
Yeah,
and I mean, I'm definitely playing Kareem Hunt over him.
Yep.
I'm thinking about just Devin Singletary or Joe Mixon. That one probably Mixon for me, but.
Yeah, I would agree. But when that's where we're at, we were talking about how Singletary doesn't even need to be in a lineup, unless you're forced into playing him. So that's where we're putting Joe Mixon on the field, right? Where we're like, fuck, you don't really. I guess you play him over Singletary, but that's not a great comparison if you're a Joe Mixon owner. You're fuck.
It's not ideal. I mean, it's he's in a tough situation, and maybe he proves us wrong, but. I'm not trying to bet on that.
Nope, I'm not gambling on it either. And I think, you touched on it. Obviously, things for Tyler Boyd has not worked out super well. He's due for a positive touchdown regression, Walsh. His 94 targets are tied with DJ Moore for the most in the league among all players with one or fewer receiving touchdowns. Again, I don't know that he gets it here, but at some point, we love regression, right? At some point it's got to happen, right?
I love regression when Ryan Finley's not the quarterback. I don't know, man. I mean, particularly in this game, Pittsburgh's pass defense has been pretty lights out. They used to be very, very vulnerable against the slot, and they've really tightened that up as well. So, Boyd for me is on my bench.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver 4, give or take.
Yeah. It fucking sucks, man. He was really having some great performances earlier.
Yeah, I hope they figure their shit out. I traded for him in a dynasty league, and so far that is not panned out well.
Well, I mean, when Joe Burrows is their quarterback next year, and he's throwing the ball to Tyler Boyd, then maybe that'll work out for you. But until then, I don't know how good it's gonna work out.
In the short term, it's definitely going in the L category, but. It is what it is. Tyler Eifert in the tight end position as a whole is not fucking relevant here at all.
No.
Walshy, let's pick it. Can we sweep the Steelers?
I think so.
Let's sweep the Steelers through. Yet another sweep and one more game, Walsh, before the break. The New York Giants at the Chicago Bears. Start on the Giants side of the ball. Daniel Jones leading the team. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at his target distribution here. So this one comes from Roto World. His target distribution in one game with both Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard, who had a full practice on Wednesday. We expect him to be back here for Week 12. Evan Ingram, 11 targets. Shepard with 9. Tate with 6. We got a very, very, very busy fantasy offense with these pass catchers on top of Saquon Barkley in the backfield.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't really expect the team to do too much, but I feel like there's a lot of guys to talk about here. I mean, the implied point total here is fucking 17 points. Like yep. It's not like we're looking at it like what we expect to be a prolific offense. But you're right, Barkley's an obvious start for everyone who owns 100%. Him. I think Shepard coming back really complicates things. It's worth noting that Ingram is going to miss this week or is expected to miss. And also Rhett Ellison is expected to miss behind him. So I think rather than try and project targets to the tight ends behind them on the depth chart, I think we can maybe just assume that tight end will be ignored for the most part on the Giants offense this week.
I agree. I think we have to ignore the tight end spot, right? Because we don't, if Ingram was active, then we've got a fucking shit show, but we don't expect that to be the case. But yeah, Sterling Shepard getting healthy from his concussion and Golden Tate. I think you're playing both of them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that. And it's tough. It's not the best matchup. But it is probably the correct call. I have reservations about Darius Slayton because over the past 3 weeks, the guy who's led the Giants in targets is Darius Slayton with 23% of the targets. Like, do you just send that guy? I mean, he's going to be out there in 3 wide receiver sets. He's going to be on the outside. Like, is that a guy that you sit right now?
Yes.
Okay.
With ours, I mean, it's one where like it's like a stake through my heart when he catches 2 touchdowns again in the end zone, but I just think when I'm looking at the other options, right, like Ingram fine out, we'll throw the tight end out. But between Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and obviously Saquon in a not great matchup, it's really going to be, Darius Slayton could make the big play, right? He breaks free, gets by the deep, whatever, and scores. But I think the statistical likelihood of that, I'm not betting on Darius Slayton.
Okay, I think I agree with that. And I think for what it's worth, like we said, you're rolling out like Tate and Shepard. Like you don't have to.
No.
Like you can,
yes.
But they're on the border of that. I don't think they're necessarily guys that you should be like, I need to get this guy in my lineup this week, no matter what. You know, it's not a situation like that. No
need to force it. I mean, the Bears haven't allowed 300 passing yards in a game since week 6 of 2018. I mean. So, again, we're looking at the implied possibilities of the yardage. You don't have to force them in. Theoretically, the opportunities should be there with no Evan Ingram. But if they actually are, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, it's tough.
I think that's as good as we can leave it for the people. Let's talk about the Bears side of the ball, Walsh, because I'm a frustrated David Montgomery owner. We watch him go, I feel like it's the fucking classic roller coaster. And I feel like you're usually riding it because whether it's the Dolphins or the Texans or Lamar Miller, you've been on that roller coaster before. But David Montgomery, I can't figure him out for the life of me.
Here's the thing about David Montgomery. He's bad. He's not good. I think that's they always make such a big deal about like how many tackles this guy misses, and he misses them all behind the line of scrimmage and still loses a yard. Like that's how he works. That's oversimplification, but theoretically this is a good matchup for him. The Giants defense is not good.
No.
So like, yeah, you can go for it. Like I am actively trying to avoid doing that because while the Giants defense is not good, they are much worse against the pass than they are against the run. So here's a question, and I'm saying this because I have a bias one way.
Sure.
Would you rather start Tariq Cohen or David Montgomery this week in terms of the Bears running backs?
Well, I know exactly where your bias is going to go based on your last statement of the Giants against the pass. I mean, I own so much David Montgomery that my personal bias wants to say David Montgomery because I hope that he does it because there are a couple spots where I do need to play him because of buys. But I think statistically, Walsh, the correct answer is Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly be on Tariq Cohen here. For what it's worth, David Montgomery only played 46% of snaps last week, which is the lowest that he had in a while. And Tariq Cohen set a season high outside of week 1 where he was playing slot receiver. He wasn't even playing running back with 59% of snaps. Okay. He got 6 targets this past week. He has 15 targets over the past 3 weeks. So, I don't think it's a great play by any means, but I also don't think Montgomery is a great play by any means. So Cohen, I think there's a conversation to be had in terms of who is the more valuable Bears running back at this point.
Totally fair. I just want to rewind very quickly when you were like, well, here's the thing about David Montgomery. And I'm like, oh, wow, like Walsh just got like some like big statistical and you're just like, he's bad. Because I was like slowly prepping. I'm like, oh man, Walsh is going to drop some fucking knowledge, and it's just like, no, he's just bad. That's just case in fucking point. You threw me for a loop. But yeah, I mean, like you said, statistically, the past game it's Tariq Cohen. David Montgomery, I don't know what you're going to get. I have no good input for you guys because I'm biased and want him to do well. But there's nothing for me minus Walsh saying he's bad to sway you guys either way. Pass catchers, A-Rod, I'm just trying to see what he do last week.
Not much. He was
6 for 86.
He got shut down a little bit by Jalen Ramsey.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, Taylor Gabriel got a ton of work in that last game.
Yeah.
I think they're both viable this week. I mean, Allen Robinson's just a good wide receiver against a bad secondary. Like, that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Even with Trubisky, likely at quarterback. But the Giants have been beat deep all year. I think Taylor Gabriel has gotten enough volume. I mean, I think it was 12 targets this past week. But in the past 3 weeks, total 23 targets. That's pretty good. That's a quarter of their target share over that time period. And I know that was – sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say he's only $4,200 on DraftKings. Just for DFS.
Yeah, I mean, I'm likely going to have shares of him this week. In some of like the 3 max or some of the narrow tournaments that I'm trying to enter.
Yep.
But yeah, it's not a bad play. I mean, the Giants have gotten beat deep very, very consistently this year. Taylor Gabriel goes deep. He's fast. He's been getting targets. I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. Walsh has cleared 50 receiving yards or scored a touchdown in 4 consecutive games. So big ups. Anthony Miller, despite a bad Giant secondary, I'm not in on. I think he was the byproduct of Jalen Ramsey on A-Rob there in weeks 9 and 10 combined. He had 1 pass for 7 yards.
Yeah, I'm also not in on Miller. I don't think it's the correct play this week.
Tight end, hard pass.
Yeah, fucking ignore it. I mean, they're down to Ben Bronica right now. Not ideal.
No, not ideal at all. All right, let's pick this game.
I'm taking the Giants. Let's go upset.
Fuck, I'll take the safe answer there. I'm going to go with the Bears. So that's going to do it on the first half. Walshy, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back, and we'll kick things off with your Oakland Raiders, at the New York Jets.
Have you thought about trying sports betting but aren't sure how it'll go? Our friends at FanDuel are giving away a $50 sign-up bonus at letstalkfantasyfootball.com/FanDuel-sportsbook.
Welcome back, guys. I'm still here with Walsh, and Walsh, we're going to go right into your Oakland Raiders here at the New York Jets, and I'm going to let you kick us off because Oakland's your team, baby.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland's a 3-point favorite here on the road, which is nice to see. The over-under is 46.5. I said Buffalo at Cleveland could be a sneaky shootout. I think this is less sneaky, but I also think it's a lot more likely to be a shootout because we have 2 really pitiful pass defenses in this game. So I think this one's likely to hit the over as well. I think there's going to be a lot of offense involved. And sort of starting on the Oakland side, Derek Carr, obviously a good streamer. I think you're always sort of limited with your ceiling in terms of Derek Carr. but he is, a solid play this week as he sort of has been the past couple. In terms of their pass catchers, it's a little bit harder to parse because recently, and I believe I wrote these stats down over the past 4 weeks, Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller lead the way with 22 targets each. That's an 18% target share. To not have one single receiver over a 20% target share is very rare in the NFL.
Yeah.
So what that says is basically they're spreading the ball around a lot. They've been running the ball a lot. The other receiver who's been sort of relevant has been Tyrell Williams with 19 targets over that time, which has been about 16% of the target share. That being said, I really like Tyrell Williams this week. I think he's a guy you should be looking to get into your lineups if you can, over a guy like Tyler Boyd, over a guy like Curtis Samuel, maybe even over a guy like Michael Gallup, in a tough matchup against New England, because the Jets' outside corners have been bad. Tyrell Williams over that 4-week period still has 34% of the air yards, so he's the guy who's getting targeted downfield the most. And to me, this just feels like a game where he can really get it done. You talked about in the last game, you talked about Taylor Gabriel being only 4,200 on DraftKings. I haven't done a lot of research on the prices, but I would assume Tyrell's relatively cheap, and he's a guy that I will probably have a lot of exposure to this weekend in daily.
No, I love the call on Tyrell Williams, and like you said, you just look at that target share, and it's just kind of like, fuck. Close my eyes, throw a dart, and pick one, and statistically, they're all pretty much even on their targets. But the Jets have just been fucking pitiful. Multi-touchdown performances to Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, Preston Williams. Just not great things, which means someone here is going to have the big day. I do agree that I think Williams is the guy, but if you have to roll out one or the other, if you're playing Waller or even Hunter Renfrow, it's a good matchup. Lots of points to be had for sure. Your boy Josh Jacobs, Walshy, they just seems like they're just managing his workload, right? He has got the quote unquote shoulder injury, but seems okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a guy that you need to be playing.
No. I agree.
He was super unlucky to sort of not get in the end zone, and he had a fumble this past week against Cincinnati. So I think they maybe sort of punished him a little bit for that. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, it's the Jets have had like a sneaky good run defense, and their pass defense has just been terrible. But like Josh Jacobs is good. In the past couple of weeks, he's gotten a little bit more pass work, even though his snap share has stayed relatively the same. He's a good running back. He's a good player. I think you're definitely playing him. Yeah,
no, I agree. Definitely playing him. Just that he was limited at Thursday's practice. I think that's more of a workload management versus him actually, being in risk for this week's game. He's topped 100 rushing yards in 4 of his last 6. I think there's no reason he can't make that 5 of 7 here against the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong at all there.
We already talked about Waller, so we don't even have to necessarily, unless you have something specific you want to say about him, he's a start.
No, he's a definite start. I think you should temper your expectations on him a little bit because they have been spreading the ball around so much. But, I mean, it's tight end. He's a start.
Amen to that. All right, let's talk about the Jets side of the ball, Walsh. Sam Darnold. They beat the Giants and the Redskins, which is, it's good for team morale, I guess. But they get the Raiders. They get another very, very bad pass defense. I'm not interested in playing Sam Darnold as a streaming candidate as we were pumped on Derek Carr. Do you feel differently?
I would play him above Derek Carr.
Okay.
Because I think he is a little bit more aggressive than Derek Carr with the ball, even though they haven't been throwing the ball downfield either. But I think they also might be playing from behind a little bit, which I like. I like Darnold. He's also, full disclosure, I've been playing him in several leagues for several weeks, and I am going to continue through next week when they play the Bengals. So I'm on Darnold. I did what I said I was going to do. I picked him up when they played Miami. I've been starting him ever since then in several different leagues. I see no reason to go away from it, and he's a guy I might target in daily. Again, I'm going to be a little bit price sensitive in terms of that, and I don't know what the prices look like right now.
Okay. I think at the Le'Veon Bell. If you own him, I think you're playing Le'Veon Bell, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I'll make it the conversation.
Yeah, he's been disappointing, but you're not benching him by any means.
Nope. So Le'Veon Bell's in there. I think when it comes to the wide receivers, despite it being a good matchup, the only wide receiver I'm interested in is Jamison Crowder. I think Robbie Anderson is just – he finished with fewer than 50 receiving yards in 5 consecutive games since that Week 6 blow-up against the Cowboys. It could happen. He only needs that one big play to do it, and the Raiders' pass defense is bad. But I think it's all Jamison Crowder. I'm not interested in Demaryius Thomas. He hasn't found the end zone, and he has only surpassed 50 receiving yards in 3 of 8 games this season. So I think for me it's Crowder, and if you wanted to play Ryan Griffin, I think those are the 2 pass catchers I have interest in.
Yeah, I think he nailed it there. Crowder leads the team over the past 4 weeks with a 22% target share, and it's not even like he's getting like particularly close to the line of scrimmage targets. 27% of the air yards there. I think his ADOT is around 10, which for this team that is not throwing the ball downfield a ton is pretty good. He also leads the team in red zone targets on the season. He's got 8 of them. For perspective, the next 2 are Bell and Griffin. They each have 6. So Crowder, I'm all about. I think he's a great play. Robbie Anderson should not be played in any sort of league by any means. Only 12% target share over that time period, and also only a 12.7 yard ADOT. So he's not even like getting downfield Robbie Anderson targets that we like. Yeah. Like if he was going to get a 12% target share, but he's also streaking down the field for, 2 targets a game, cool. Throw him out there as a dart throw. That's not the case right now. You nailed it on Griffin. He's been very good recently. And it's tight end, so you can definitely roll him out there. And I think if you're desperate, you could roll DT in this matchup. 17% target share over the past 4 weeks. I don't think you should be trying to, but if you're desperate.
Okay. All right. I'm fine if you're desperate with the plug and play on DT. Let's pick it. I'm taking the Oakland Raiders, baby.
Yeah, I am also taking the Raiders. We're making the fucking playoffs this year, dude.
I'll tell you what, man. You guys fucking scare me as a Chiefs fan. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a bit concerned, but we'll see where we are in a couple of weeks as we approach the playoffs. Because I think, do we play week 17 or maybe it's 16? I have to look at the schedule.
I forget.
But either way, going to be, whether it's 16 or 17, that's going to be a fucking crucial game for both of us.
Yeah, we will be extreme enemies that week. That is for sure. And mean, based on our records, if it is 16, like, there's a shot we're also just playing each other.
It could be a week filled of just profanity-laced texts being sent back and forth every day.
If that's the case, we'll have to make sure we get on a podcast together that week, just to see how mad we can get at each other.
It's fucking destiny, dude. If that's how life decides to align us, then we're meant to fucking be together for forever and ever. All right, let's move on and talk about the Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Kyle Allen is trash.
Yeah, he hasn't been good.
That's really as much as I've got. He has force-fed DJ Moore in recent weeks. Moore's current streak of 6 games with at least 8 targets is only bested by DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas, who's also playing in this game. I didn't know this until I actually just saw it, but who is this? DJ Moore is due for some positive touchdown regression. He joins Tyler Boyd as the league's most targeted wide receiver that has 1 or fewer receiving touchdowns. Again, I mean, with Kyle Allen at the helm, just like you said before, do I have any fucking faith in that happening? No.
Yeah, it's tough. Kyle Allen's looked really, really bad, and this is not like a spectacular matchup, even if Marshawn Lattimore does miss or is limited or that kind of thing. I mean, I think we all got excited about Godwin and Evans with Lattimore missing, and we're like, okay, like this is going to be a great matchup for them. And then neither of them really did much. If Godwin hadn't gotten in the end zone, it wouldn't have been a good week for him. And the tight end position got 14 targets, and it wasn't the tight end that we thought it was going to be. So
it never fucking is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all sort of a crapshoot there. I mean, if you're going to be playing a wide receiver on this team, it should be DJ Moore. He's shown himself to be the much more consistent option here. Curtis Samuel has pretty much needed touchdowns to be productive and be relevant. I will take the L on that one. I will take it with the caveat that I thought Cam would be fully healthy. So
totally fair.
But I will still take the L on that one. I think, those of us who really got behind the Carolina passing game have taken quite a few L's this year.
Ain't that the truth?
Moore, I think, is a solid play. Samuel, I'm actively trying not to play. I said before I would play Tyrell over him.
Yes.
I think I said that. Did I say that?
You did.
Cool. Sweet. I meant to say that. And then I think Greg Olsen is still a pretty solid play. 21 targets over the past 3 weeks. He sort of had a lull in the middle of the season, and he's really come out of that and shown that he is still Greg Olsen. At least, Greg Olsen, who's usable enough on a week-to-week basis.
He's consistent, man, and I think you nailed it. When you look at him statistically, he's actually the number 9 overall tight end in PPR. So he had his kind of lull, but it's all kind of averaged out to him being there, which is what we're saying he is. A safe floor, low tight end one. He's playing almost every snap. Has gained at least 40 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. So, that is what it is.
Can I go on a slight rant here?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, so the Panthers play Jarius Wright in the slot. Jarius Wright is not good. I don't know who they have in terms of other receivers who can maybe come in for him.
Yep.
But the Saints are vulnerable in the slot. They have been all year. That's where you sort of attack the Saints. This is sort of a known thing. Jarius Wright does not produce anything, and he hasn't all year. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are both guys who have shown that they can produce in the slot in their short careers, and they don't use them in the slot because they insist on using Jarius Wright there. But Jarius Wright isn't going to do anything in this game because he's Jarius Wright, even though it's a good matchup. I want them to be using one of DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel in the slot for this matchup, because then we can just be extremely confident in rolling that guy out there and knowing that they can get fed with targets, probably get over 100 yards, and instead it's Jarius right there.
And they do it because they know it just pisses you the fuck off, Walsh. That's the only reason.
Fucking Ron Rivero just loves pissing me off.
Ain't that the fucking truth? All right, Walsh, let's talk Saints side of the ball. Michael Thomas is going to be in a projected shadow matchup here with James Bradbury.
Doesn't matter.
It does not matter. Thomas has caught at least 5 passes in all 7 of his career matchups against the Panthers. You own Michael Thomas, you're playing Michael Thomas. You own Alvin Kamara, you're playing Alvin Kamara. That's it. I don't trust Ted Ginn, Traquan Smith, any of that nonsense.
Yeah, I don't trust Jared Cook either, who only saw 3 targets this past week. I think Olsen is the better tight end to play in this matchup. I think he nailed it. It's Thomas. It's Kamara. If you want to get really cute in this game where they're a pretty heavy favorite, you might be able to sneak a Latavius start out of that. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I don't think it's a terrible idea. I don't think we actually mentioned Christian McCaffrey's name, but I don't know that we need to.
You're right. We totally buzzed right over. We've done a lot of that today. I feel like we buzzed over the running back spot, but in that situation, it's not relevant. But if you do own McCaffrey, guys, he should be on your bench.
Yeah, totally sit him.
There's just no hope for him. Lost season. Lost season indeed. Anything else on the Saints side of the ball, Walsh?
No, I will be taking the Saints in this matchup.
I will take the Saints as well. Sweep it through. Last game on part 1 of the podcast, Walsh, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. Let's start on the Buccaneers side of the ball. We touched on them just briefly with Mike Evans and Godwin and kind of everything else. The Falcons defense here has allowed a total of 12 points against the Saints and Panthers since their Week 9 bye. Is this fake? Is this a newfound Atlanta Falcons defense, or is this just the way it happened here? Because this is not the Falcons. We used to be like, it's the fucking Falcons. Like, this is a fucking cakewalk.
Yeah, I'm buying it. I mean, there's danger in buying recent performances when nothing of merit has actually changed. But what they did after the bye week was Dan Quinn stopped calling the defensive plays. He is the head coach. So I just actually read about this today, but they moved their wide receiver coach to being their defensive backs coach. And also Dan Quinn's not calling the plays. I think their defensive coordinator calls first and second down. And this guy who's their defensive backs coach, who they just moved to being their defensive backs coach, is Raheem Morris, I believe is his name.
Yep.
He calls third down, which I've never heard of like a split like that before.
Bold move, Cotton.
It appears to be working. So, I mean, like in this situation, like after they beat the Saints, I was like, okay, this might be a real thing, but based on 1 week, I'm going to say this is more likely not a real thing. Now we've got 2 weeks of evidence that this has worked out pretty well. I'm starting to buy that with this material change that happened, that this is making a difference. So I'm kind of off Tampa in the sense that I'm not trying to stream Jameis.
Okay.
I am not off of them in the sense that I am still playing Evans and Godwin, which you should be doing every week.
Ding, 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 ding. Mike Evans also, over his career, has 8 touchdowns against the Falcons, and it's 3 more scores than he's compiled against any other team. So I think it's a nice spot here. I also think it's a get-right week here for Chris Godwin. He's failed to clear 75 receiving yards in 4 games since their Week 7 bye. Their lack of success, I guess you could call it, for the Falcons against slot wide receivers this season. I mean, Nelson Aguilar went for 107 and a fucking touchdown. Like, when Nelson Aguilar gets it done, a lot of people can get it done. And I think it's a get-right week for Chris Godwin.
Okay, that's fair. The Falcons not being a terrible defense is like really fucking with my head. And like, I don't really have a lot of strong opinions on this game because of it, other than I think I'm going to bet the under.
Okay.
Because like, I don't know. It bothers me when defenses have like these crazy like differences or splits in them. And there's another one coming up in part 2. But defenses that have these crazy splits, like in the middle of the season when you think you know something and they're like, nope, you don't know shit.
Oh, no. Well, and all you have to do is listen to my analysis I just gave in those 2 guys, right? Because my analysis was essentially the Falcons are bad. And statistically, like, this is the time. And when you look at all these other performances, like, it wasn't since their defense has changed. So, you know, you could just say that I've ignored the fact that they've gotten good, and I guess I believe they become a little less good. I don't know.
But them being good might be a 2-week fluke too.
100%. 100%. Like, we're both overanalyzing on the other sides, right? We just don't know which one of us is leaning closer to the right way.
Yeah.
But we'll find out soon enough. Tight ends, no go.
No, I mean, we thought O.J. Howard was back 2 weeks ago, and then he had that one, which this past week, Jameis threw 4 picks. 3 of them were just like totally not his fault, which like,
and the one
you'll rarely see me defend Jameis on a pick, but like the first one was literally O.J. Howard caught the ball in front of him and then bobbled it to where he was trying to catch it, like re-catch it behind his own back, and then popped it up in the air and it got picked. And then after that, he got benched and Cam Brate got 14 targets. I don't expect either of those things to happen again this week. Stay the fuck away from Tampa Bay Titans.
Yeah, you can't predict it. We have no idea what the fuck's going to happen. It was a cool play, though, I will say, when I watched it on Red Zone, where it's like, trying to catch it. Just kidding. It's a fucking pick.
O.J. Howard's fall from grace, man, has been stark. Like, not only have they not used him well, but he's just been bad when they have used him.
It's like, hey, we're going to give you a shot. And he's like, watch me fuck this up. You guys ready? I can do it.
He's got like Jameis-itis or something. I don't know what it is.
Itis. Well, not a great thing. Not a great thing, Walsh.
That's the medical term, Jameis-itis, but the vernacular term is just the crabs. Because he stole crab legs.
I see what you did there. You fucking
God, I'm hilarious.
We need to move on. Falcons side of the ball, Walshy. Julio Jones finally has a Julio Jones game, 100 yards, over 100 yards. I'm trying to see. I don't even have the full stat number in front of me, but Julio Jones eruption week. No, hold on. I'm looking at old stats. I think I'm expecting a Julio Jones eruption week. That's yep, I read that my notes totally wrong.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it was really more of a Calvin Ridley's week this past week.
I expect a Julio Jones eruption week this week. Yes, last week was a Calvin Ridley week. Wow, I couldn't have done that worse.
That's all right.
I'm all shaken up over here, Walshy.
I'll take it. I got it, man.
Go, run with it.
I mean, Matt Ryan in this matchup is a stellar play. He's another guy that I'm looking at heavily playing in daily. Again, price sensitive, but I think he's lining up to be a great play. Tampa Bay is really, just such a pass funnel. Their run defense is very good. Their pass defense is not good. I think it lines up perfectly, particularly with us expecting for him to get Austin Hooper back this week. Yes. So I think you've got Matt Ryan. I think Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Austin Hooper are all great plays. I was tempted with Russell Gage in some daily lineups this past week. It did not work. He had a touchdown called back. I still don't know exactly why it was called back, but it got called back.
Yep.
And I'm not fucking with that anymore now that Austin Hooper is back and is likely to eat up some of that target share. Brian Hill is not a guy I am going back to, even if Devontae Freeman sits. Like I said, this is a great run defense for Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Ryan Hill looked like absolute trash this week, and no reason to really go back there. I think that's pretty much it.
Yep, I completely agree. You've been fucking burned. But Calvin Ridley comes out as a wide receiver 2 for me, and Julio Jones historically has scored and or surpassed 100 yards in 11 of 15 career matchups against the Buccaneers. He's easily a wide receiver 1 as always anyway. But I think this is the eruption week for Julio Jones that I stumbled over previously.
Yeah, I mean, there's generally 1 or 2 of them every year where just like 3 touchdowns, 200 yards. Like this feels like it's the week, right?
It should, whether it happens or not, but it feels like the pieces are there.
For a little bit of extra juice, the Bucs just cut their number 1 cornerback, Vernon Hargreaves, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago. But that means they are going to have to play the guy who was backing up Vernon Hargreaves, who has played absolutely fucking terrible this year.
So what could go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, seems pretty likely to me that Atlanta does some things.
Hey, big things coming. Walsh, let's pick this game.
Falcons.
I want to go opposite you, but I've taken all the favorites. I'll still do it. Sweep it through. And I will say all picks on the favorites. But Walsh, that's going to do it for part 1 here for the people. We will be back with part 2 very, very shortly as we get people ready for week 12. Playoffs are right around the corner, so it's kind of do or die time for a lot of teams. We talked about it early on. Get your questions in, guys. And do you have anything for the people?
No, I'll see you guys back in part 2. It'll be a fun one.
We'll be back. Guys, for Let's Talk Fantasy Football, I am Nick Schreck. He is Nick Walsh. We will catch you on the flip side.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.